Today's dish comes from Laos, which is a Southeast Asian country between Vietnam and Thailand. And due to its proximity to those two countries, you'll see a few similarities to the cuisines of Thailand and Vietnam. To get started, I'm going to make a broth. So I'll add a couple liters of water into a large pot. And I'll prep some lemongrass, peeling off the outer leaves. I'm going to give it a gentle smashing with my mortar. And because this is a stock, I'm going to just roughly chop these into short pieces. Next, I've got some galangal, or galangal as some people call it. I'm not sure exactly which is correct. I'm going to slice that into about 4 or 5 thin slices and dump that in. And next I want cilantro root. This bunch of cilantro didn't actually have the roots, which isn't very common over here anyway. So I'm going to use the stems. And hold on to the leaves for later. Next up, I've got some pork bones that the butcher has already chopped into even pieces. That'll help all the marrow and everything come out, which will speed up the process. I'm going to bring that up to a boil and skim off any scum that floats to the surface. And I'll let that go for 20 minutes. While it's going, I'll heat up some oil in a wok over medium heat. And I'm going to add in a diced up shallot. Anybody else find these annoying to peel with those extra lobes? At least they're easy to dice. Throw those into the oil, along with a couple cloves of minced garlic. Mix those around and saute them for a few minutes until they're fragrant and the shallots are translucent. And next I'm going to go in with some curry paste. Luckily enough, the recipes that I sourced for this call for pre-made red curry paste. Specifically this brand. I'm not sure if there are any other brands that are as good, so let me know in the comments if you know of any that could substitute this with. Luckily this is available online, so it was really easy to get a hold of. And it comes with like 6 cans, so you can make this a few times, or it's actually a product of Thailand, so you can make a Thai red curry with this pretty easily. Dump in the whole can. And let's fry that for a few minutes till the oil picks up some red color. And next I'm going to slice up some pork belly. This recipe calls for either pork belly or ground pork. And when I have the option of using pork belly, I'm going to use pork belly. But ground pork would definitely make this a little bit simpler, so feel free to go in that direction if you want. We'll brown that on both sides. Then I'll go in with a can of coconut milk. Make sure to get every last drop. Stir that in. And this is already looking amazing. I'm going to bring that up to a simmer. Then I'll add in that pork stock. I'm using a little sieve to make sure I don't get any of those impurities and gunk that were floating around in the stock. And now this soup has an egg drop element to it, so I'm gonna add in a whole bunch of eggs here. It calls for 6 eggs, which honestly makes this super thick. So if you're not into excessive egg drop, then you can go ahead and reduce that amount. And honestly, there's a lot of fillings that are going in here, so maybe cut everything down a little bit if you want it to be a little bit more soupy. I'm gonna stream those in while stirring to create nice strands of egg. Then I'll go in with a tablespoon of sugar, a couple tablespoons of tamarind concentrate. This will add some sweetness and acidity. Next up is fermented soybean paste. I got this Thai brand as well, which was also recommended. And while it looks very runny with whole beans in it, the flavor is pretty close to a miso or doenjang. And I'll add a couple tablespoons of fish sauce, which acts as our seasoning for this. Next, I'm going to grind up some roasted peanuts and dump those in. Now this is going to thicken up the soup into more of a stew. So if you're not into that, then hold off and use it as a garnish instead. Next up, I've got some rice noodles or rice stick. Now this package says to boil them for 5 seconds, so that's what I did, and it turned out great. But follow the instructions on your rice noodles, because they do tend to vary. And now to plate this up, I'm going to throw in some noodles, some bean sprouts, some of those cilantro leaves from before. Now I'm using some Thai basil, but ideally you'd use mint here. I'll slice up some spring onion greens and toss those on top. Then I'll ladle in the curry, which as you can see is very thick at this point. Then I'll add a couple wedges of lime to squeeze over. And this is such a hearty, delicious meal. Like I said, it's super thick and loaded with ingredients, and specifically loaded with a lot of protein. You've got the pork, you've got the eggs, you've got the peanuts. So if you are a weightlifter or bodybuilder, this might be a solid move for a post-workout meal.